X-Men 97 is the shit. And I know what you're thinking. Yeah, I know that. And that was exactly my mindset before I watched this show. But guys, this show hits different. And I know other people have made videos on this show, but low-key, I'm very new here. But I don't care. I'm going to talk about this show. When you see a nobody like me who has like 10 subscribers praise this show, you already know this show is really good. And I'm going to be honest, I was very late in watching this show. School and life be hella busy, and I was an acting lead, and because of that, I missed out. To be honest, I was a little intimidated in starting the show because if you don't know, this is a continuation of the popular X-Men animated series that came out in the 90s, hence the title, X-Men'97. At first, I thought I had to watch the original show, but you don't. You can literally just watch 97 and you will understand everything that's been going on. Which is good because all good shows that have revivals or continue years or a long while after their last episode doesn't stress you out, and rewatching many episodes just know what's going on. You can literally dive in blindly and have a blast. And I have seen the original 90s animated show, but that was when I was a kid, and to be honest, revisiting it a little bit now, I only like that show aesthetically and a couple story arcs, like the Dark Phoenix and the whole Phoenix saga was pretty good, but not the whole show. And before anyone asks, I have seen a little bit of X-Men Evolution. I did like it, I just never finished it. So maybe I'll watch Evolution in its entirety and talk about it. Maybe. We shall see. But before watching the show, my favorite X-Men series was Wolverine and the X-Men. Because to me, it felt more of a personal story about fighting racism and hate from humans and the MRD. And with Charles being gone, he's always gone, I swear. Having this consciousness trapped in the future, which was a pretty cool storyline. And Steve Blum as Wolverine is just...
I gotta tell you, it was perfect. Perfect. Everything, down to the last minute details.
The X-Men for both of these shows deal with trying to carry on Xavier's legacy. But honestly, I actually prefer X-Men 97's take on it as a whole. And if I'm gonna be real with y'all, 97 might be on par with Invincible for me. Like, both of these shows are top tier animation storytelling. It sounds kind of crazy and a little too soon, but I mean, Invincible Season 1 itself is amazing. And the first season of this show is honestly on par. So, I'm going to talk about spoilers for this show. So if you have not seen it, trust me, watch it and come back to this video. This is your warning. Okay, let's go. What I really appreciate about this show, from the get-go, is that it throws you right into the heat of the world. Everything happens in an engaging way that does not waste your time. I mean, every episode is like 30 minutes. Which honestly, they feel shorter, but that's when you know that you get into it. The characterizations of characters in this show are amazing. Aside from the comics, this is easily the best and most faithful versions of these characters and storylines. Also, the fight scenes in this show are fucking sick. The animation and the way each character utilizes their powers is so badass and fun. It reminded me of Marvel vs. Capcom because it's very stylized and it's very artistic and metal as fuck. Especially when Magneto rips the adamantium out of Wolverine in homage to the comics, and Charles loses it, and he and Magneto have this argument, fight in Magneto's head about their philosophies, while the remaining X-Men are fighting Bastion, and it was so cool and creative. It just has the sauce that the live-action movies lack. Like, a lot of people are obsessed with Cyclops now, and finally, people don't think he's lame anymore. Because for a long time, the public perception of Cyclops was from the Fox's live-action X-Men movies, and let's be real, he was done really dirty. Like, he legitimately didn't do shit except die off screen in The Last Stand. But here in the show, he's actually a badass who gets shit done. You really feel for him in this show when his entire world is honestly torn upside down. Like, this is what Scott deals with the show. In his will, Charles Xavier gave the X-Men to Magneto instead of Scott, who has been with the X-Men since day one, who has also been leading the X-Men. During that time, it turns out that the woman he had a child with is a clone of his wife, which causes him to question everything, even his love for Jean, and how he had to give up his newly born child because of a virus to send him to that future to save his life. His morals and values are always questioned and challenged by Magneto and by the world and the conflicts in this story. He has so much more depth, and he easily has the most badass superhero landing of all time.
Solid work, team. See you on the ground. To me, my X-Men.
That's what I'm talking about! That's why he's the MVP! That's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT!
What I love and appreciate about this show is that literally everyone has a chance to shine and be badass. But the one character that I'd say does not do much in this show is Wolverine. I'd say out of everyone, he's just there and occasionally has badass fight scenes. And honestly, totally cool with me. Like, I love Wolverine, but let's be real. Society and the live action movies are legitimately obsessed with Wolverine. And for all of his live action movies and overall X-Men movies, he takes up most of the screen time. And he's probably the only character that has the most character arcs and characterization. And I love the character Wolverine, especially Hugh Jackman who portrays him, but I'm just really glad for once he's not a main point in the story. He's literally there to be sarcastic and to be a badass. Plus, he's literally going to be the star in Deadpool and Wolverine that's coming out this year, so I'm glad we had less Wolverine here because we're going to have a lot more of him later. And finally, with his comic-inspired suit, like, oh my god, it looks so fucking badass! And speaking of Deadpool, Cable was really good in this show. he had a small part, but his involvement in the plot was really cool. Especially when he tried to warn Madeline Pryor of the Genosha attack, but he literally was prevented by time itself, and it was heartbreaking. But I really like the dynamic between him and Cyclops, his father, and how he was able to finally be with his parents and spend time with them because he never did. But Magneto is a huge standout in this show. He has so much emotion and depth to his character this season. You can see that he genuinely tries to honor Charles's wish, but humanity's racism and unending hate is challenging him and causing him to revert to his old violent ways, which is heartbreaking to see. In episode 2, he had every right and chance to kill Executioner for shooting and taking away Storm's powers, and to honestly seek justice against the UN, but instead he spares all of them. He's written so well to the point where generally Magneto is not wrong. When Genosha was attacked by the Sentinels, he breaks completely. And the whole attack itself is heartbreaking because Magneto was finally going to negotiate peace and let go of his hatred and need for vengeance against humanity. But when the Sentinels attacked, that is all gone. And when he's fighting the Sentinels, the shots of him in the concentration camps in the Holocaust while fighting the Sentinels on his own were very strong because he's literally experiencing another Holocaust with the Sentinels massacring his people. Magneto is easily a favorite and one of the best characters in this show. But the one character that is not my favorite is Rogue. Now, don't get me wrong. I like Rogue, and she has some really good moments and very good features. But the only reason why I say this is because she really did my boy Gambit dirty. Like, here's a rundown. She cheats on Gambit, gets mad that Gambit is upset about it, and then literally right after, sexually dances with Magneto in front of everyone and in front of Gambit. And then when Gambit dies, she's all like, "But I loved him."
You serious?
Like, dude, you literally were sneaking around intimately with Magneto and cheated. And yeah, you can say that the only person Rogue can touch and feel is Magneto due to her powers, and they had a relationship before in the past, but still, you still did Gambit dirty, man. And also, Gambit is honestly probably my favorite character in the show. Like, he really stood out in the show. I already liked Gambit before, but this show made me love Gambit. He's the smoothest fly in the sky. And that team up he did with Wolverine in the beginning, when episode 1 was just so badass. And his death genuinely made my jaw drop. He truly went out in the most badass way. And I really love and appreciate that his death correlates to Charles' final words to Gambit at the end of the original 90s show.
Gambit, how often must the scoundrel prove himself a hero before he believes it himself?
It makes his death hit harder by proving to everyone that he is not defined by his past, that he truly is a hero. He was so cool, and I hope he comes back because he's one of the best characters in the show, period. This show also introduces the mutant Sunspot, and honestly, he's not that bad. I will agree and say that there is not much to his character, aside from being ashamed of being a mutant, to his mom basically selling him out, and then he joins Magneto's cause. And hopefully he develops into a more interesting character in Season 2, because his whole thing is, I'm ashamed of my powers, but I'm down to date Jubilee. And as much as this show slapped, I will say the Nintendo episode was probably the weakest episode for me. It's not bad, but I would have honestly preferred Storm's subplot with Forge and getting her powers back to be a full episode, instead of sharing half an episode with the stuck in a video game adventure. And by the way, the Storm subplot was really good. Storm is fucking badass in this show. I did, however, like how they used the original voice actress of Jubilee, the older Jubilee in the video game world. So when our Jubilee and the older Jubilee meet, it was like passing the baton to our new Jubilee voice actress. And it was really cool. But honestly, the fact that half of an episode is the only criticism for me just shows how tight this show is. Also, I did not expect this show to have many character cameos. Like, Josh Keaton is actually pretty good as Captain America. I'm so used to hearing him as Spider-Man, but he actually does good as Cap, and I hope he does show up more in the future. And there are scenes and fights where my homie Morph, he's so good in this show, where he transforms into other characters like Hulk, Lady Deathstrike, and Sabretooth, which is really cool. We even had characters show up like Daredevil, and then Doctor Doom and Zemo telling Bastion what's good. Iron Man, and Iron Man's design looks really, really cool. And hell, even Cloak and Dagger appear. Like, when I saw them, I honestly went,
Whoa. Here I come. Oh, here I come. Oh.
but my favorite, and probably everyone's favorite cameo, was obviously my homeboy, Spider-Man. And I was surprised to see him with MJ because in the original 90s Spidey show, MJ gets lost in like this dimension, so it was honestly surprising to see MJ back. But to be honest, at first, when I heard that Disney is considering bringing back the 90s Spider-Man show, I was like, really?
Okay.
Because for me, I'd prefer if they continue and revive Spectacular Spider-Man because that's my favorite Spider-Man show of all time. And it ended on a massive cliffhanger. I swear, every Spider-Man show ends in a cliffhanger. And by the way, Disney, please bring back this show.
Please! Please!
But honestly, with the quality of X-Men'97 and with how genuinely great it is, I'm totally on board with them continuing the 90s Spider-Man show. I just hope that Season 2 of 97 is as good or innovates to be better than Season 1. Because the ending of the season was pretty nuts. But I read that apparently Bo DeMayo, the creator of 97, was fired during the release of the show, which is concerning. But they said that Season 2 and 3 were already in the works. So, I don't know. We'll have to see. I just hope when the MCU introduces their X-Men, I just hope that they strive to make their team as good or even better than the X-Men here. Because, honestly, the bar is set because of this show. I really hope they don't fuck up the X-Men for the MCU, but I don't know. We're just gonna have to see. So I'm gonna give X-Men'97 a 9.5 out of 10. So yeah, go watch it. It's that good, honestly. Have a good one. See you all in the next one.